Dricus Du Plessis. This your first time in Canada?
Yeah, absolutely. Our first time here. Last night we saw a lot of snow. You know, when I got here and I saw snow everywhere, felt amazing. And then last night I saw what it was all about. It's a change of scenery for me, but I'm loving it. Loving the people, loving the city, and I'm looking forward to, after the fight, staying a little bit longer and see what Canada has to offer.
Absolutely. Well, it's great to have you here now. Sean Strickland, of course, we had the fight before the fight, UFC 296. You're in the crowd, you're sitting down, and then you notice 2 rows in front of you. I'm not sure if he was already there or if he came during the event, but Sean Strickland's sitting there. What's going through your mind when you see that your opponent in about a month is going to be sitting so close to you during that event?
Yeah, I mean, I got in at just before the main card started. I went to the event. He was already there, so looking for our seats, and I just saw him. I saw him in the area where the fighters sit, and me and my teammate that was there with me, I said, well, I'm assuming we're sitting on this side, and we started looking for chairs, and the guy goes, no, your seat is on that side. And I go, okay. And we go there, and my teammate immediately goes, well, he's more of a team manager, been with us for many years. He goes, I know what's going to happen. I'm like, nothing's going to happen. I'm like, we're at a UFC event. Nothing is going to happen. He says, yeah, I know something's going to happen. I'm like, nothing's going to happen. Chill out. And we sat there, nothing happened. But I mean, obviously, when they told us, okay, the camera is coming on me, I'm talking about we sat this far apart from each other. So, and I mean, the antics started and all of that, and things got heated. And, well, nobody got hurt. Nobody got hurt, and I'm happy about that. But, you know, didn't go in there thinking that would happen. But, I mean, that's a 4D experience for your fight night.
What I'm curious about is that happens. He's escorted from the building. That's obviously not a sanctioned fight. That's taking place in public, in front of many, many eyes, in the arena and, of course, on television. Do you have any concerns after the fight happens about what the fallout from that can be?
Yeah, I mean, I'm from a different country, so I don't know. Listen, it's illegal everywhere, I'm assuming, but I didn't know what's happening here. I mean, I knew I wasn't in trouble. I guess if there's ever a self-defense scenario, that was it. But you know, not even looking at it like that, just thinking, okay, he's being escorted, so maybe they just throw him out. But then obviously there was the talks of if you want to press charges, and you know, it was almost like we understand if you press charges, you do, it's your right, and I didn't want any of that. I mean, we're fighters at the end of the day. I understand it's not professional, and that's not the way a champion should behave, and the example we try to set. But unfortunately, that's something that is still in us. And what happened. Nobody got injured, luckily. And yeah, it's not the example I'd like to set for us as athletes, but it happened. Nobody got hurt, and you know, I'm really happy that it didn't put the fight in jeopardy at all. I mean, anything could have happened, and thinking back on it, it could have been a lot worse than it was.
Yeah, if there are legal ramifications, traveling to Canada probably isn't the easiest thing.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I immediately thought of that. I mean, being from South Africa, the visa process is a very thorough and lengthy one, especially like if you have a South African passport, you need a visa to visit anywhere, everywhere. And, you know, knowing that, going through the visa process, and everybody I know that went through the visa process, any you know, running with the law is you're not coming to Canada. And when that happened, that was the one thing that I did think about when they wanted to press charges. And I just wanted to make sure, is there any way that if I don't press charges, that they can press charges? Because, listen, I'll take the blame, and if there's any way to make it 50-50 so nobody gets a record, I would do that. But, you know, because, I mean, at the end of the day, that's a fight in jeopardy, and that's the last thing I'd ever want. And it was a good old scrap. You know, we were both in for it. It wasn't a cheap shot. It wasn't any of that. We were both in for it, so we both had to take the responsibility.
Now, there was an opportunity for you to fight for the Middleweight Championship a little bit sooner than this. Last year in Australia, Israel Adesanya needed a dance partner. You wisely said, hey, I'm not 100%. I need my best winning conditions if I'm going to fight for the championship. Sean Strickland goes in, gets the shot. He's kind of the last man standing in the division that hasn't fought Israel yet outside of yourself. When you're watching that fight in real time, watching one of the biggest upsets in championship history in the UFC go down, what's going through your mind when you're seeing that Sean Strickland entering that 5th round has the fight in hand should Israel not get a finish? And Israel, while he has had finishes in the past, in those sort of situations, especially that far into a fight, we haven't really seen him do that.
Yeah, I mean, it was It was very interesting. I remember watching the fight, getting up early back home in South Africa and watching this fight. And as Adesanya walked out, I remember there was a lot of things happening. Obviously studying my opponents like I always do. Israel has been somebody that's been on my radar and on my study list. I study guys that I even study the guys that I believe I will be fighting in future. Guys that are not even ranked yet. And watching Adesanya over all these years and, making sure that I am better than him in every single way. When he walked out, firstly he had to change the color. He had the red shorts, which was very weird for me. And that was almost like trying too hard to prove something, don't know what. And then, of course, the way he walked out, always extravagant, always very confident, always in control at the press conference. He wasn't in control of that press conference. He was annoyed. He was agitated. He was not the way he... And yeah, maybe it was Sean Strickland. I don't think so. I think there was something else. But, this is just me speculating. And then, of course, when the fight started, his energy, the way his punches were slower, his punches were... He didn't fight the way he used to fight, but he is one of those fighters who would play possum. He is one of those guys. And in the way he moves, I can see when he does that. And I didn't see that in the Strickland fight, but I thought, well, he's doing it really good. And then he got clipped with that big shot. And I thought, okay, that was obviously not planned. But it's a fight game. It happens. He recovered. Second round, he's going to come and that's going to be part of the plan. And it just never came. So, yeah, maybe he had an off night. But one thing I can say is Sean Strickland did not have an off night. And even though Adesanya fought not at his best, I think Strickland, even the best Adesanya would have had a hard time with Strickland on that night. Strickland really showed up, and all kudos to him. He took that fight on short notice. The lights didn't bother him. He went the distance, and he had a very, very dominant performance. So, he deserves everything, all the credit that comes to him.
Sean Strickland is not undefeated in the UFC. We've seen him lose in the middleweight division. Are there some nuances about his body language or anything about him that you've noticed that will be something you'll look for in the fight that will present a moment for you to capitalize?
Yeah, I'll be looking for his jaw for the whole fight, chin. That's what I'm going to be looking for. And that being said, I think Sean Strickland, in terms of mannerisms, in terms of mindset, after everything that happened, really, really, I was actually shocked. Mentally, I think he's a weaker, not weak as a man, but weaker in terms of I think I gave him a lot more credit than he originally deserved in terms of how mentally strong he is. I think he's an emotional guy, emotional fighter, and some guys, some guys really fight well with that emotion, and some guys don't. So I guess we'll find out. But for me, in his mannerisms, I've seen everything I needed to see. I've seen every single thing he does. I've looked into his eyes. I've felt his power. I felt his punches. That's the one positive from that fight. That's the one thing about a fight that's the scary part, is not knowing anything. Not knowing how hard does this guy hit, how strong is this guy. He now knows how strong I am. He's felt that. And no matter what he says, how he tells the story, in his mind, he knows that. And that's a big win for me. And of course, now going into, will he fight emotional? I don't know. Will it make him better? Will it not? We'll find out on fight night. But if the best Sean Strickland shows up on fight night, like the one we saw against Adesanya, that won't be enough.
When you look at the two mentalities that you have, for him, being a champion was never a priority. It doesn't seem like it's something that he values all that much or something that he cared about all that much. He's just somebody who really enjoys fighting. That's kind of what I interpret from what he's said in the past. For you, I'll go back to, again, a previous conversation that we've had where being the champion is not enough for you. You're hungry to become the greatest of all time. So this is just a goal, not the overarching goal. When you have such different approaches to the sport, where he's just like, I just want to fight, and you're a guy that's like, I want to be known as the greatest to ever do it, what do you think is the the differences rather, in those two approaches from a mentality standpoint, if you're looking at the two of you?
All right, well, let's change it up and say, you've never watched a fight in your life, ever. You don't know the sport, nothing, and I give you $100 and your friend $100, and I say, these two guys are going to fight. And that exact thing that you just said of this guy really just enjoys fighting. This guy, you look at his body firstly, you look at his interviews, you look at the way he handles himself, and you give that exact description of this guy likes fighting. He doesn't care to be champion. That's the one thing he loves. He loves fighting. He loves it, and that's why he does it. And he trains hard. But then you have me. Then you have this guy. And you go back and all the things, how the training, the whole profile of how badly I want this, and what I'm willing to do to be the best in the world. Where are you going to put your money? And that's a very good example, I believe, of what is the difference. There's a complete different mindset. But if you're in there and you don't want that bout with your whole life, I'm taking it from you. I promise you that.
Well, why don't I play devil's advocate and I say, I've got $100 for you?
Yeah, that's perfect.
And I say, we've got one guy who's going to have no pressure going into this fight. He doesn't even care about being champion. He is the champion. He just beat one of the greatest middleweights that we've ever seen in the UFC. And now we've got this guy who's going to have all of this pressure on his shoulders because his destiny in his mind is to be the greatest ever. And he's got that weight that's going to be carried on his shoulders entering the fight against the guy who's probably going to be pretty light and loose.
Yeah, well, I mean, put more pressure on me and watch me shine. I'm a diamond. That's it. That's it. The more pressure, the more I shine. I mean, you saw the Whittaker fight. I mean, pressure makes me perform. Without pressure, this is not worth doing. Without the stakes that are high, this is not worth doing. I love the high stakes. I love the pressure. I love carrying it all on my shoulders. You bring even more. At the end of the day, when you get into that dark place where I am very comfortable, where we are both tired, where it comes down to life or death, who's going to win that bout? It's the guy who has the pressure of not giving up. The guy who has all that pressure that's going to push through, persevere. And the guy with no pressure is going to go, this is not worth it. And that's going to be the difference come fight night.
When you say life or death, you're serious about it. I know
100%.
we've spoken in the past about how when you leave South Africa, you say your goodbyes to your friends and family.
Absolutely.
Like you're not going to see them again.
This time they're coming to the fight. So, I mean, it is great, but the same rule apply. You know, you never know what happens in there.
Do you ever write letters or anything like that? I know there are fighters that write letters.
No,
sometimes.
I'm not a big writing guy. Terrible handwriting, but
You and I both.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, for me, the big thing is everybody that's really, really important to me. Most of the people that are really important in my family, my close circle, all of them will be in attendance in this fight, and this will be a testimony.
Now, I get a lot of things wrong as somebody who covers the sport, and I know you talked about Robert Whittaker and how nobody gave you a chance. Everybody, I think you said 34 pundits had been asked at some point,
Yeah.
and all 34 of them
No,
said
not even that. It's just 34 professionals.
Yeah, 34 professionals were
UFC
asked.
fighters.
And they were asked, and they all said Whittaker. Now, I'll pat myself on the back because I got that one right.
Oh,
I
beautiful.
saw Coach Visser backstage after Cameron won, and he said, what do you think happens in Dricus' fight? I go, Dricus knocks him out.
Oh, wow.
And,
That is... Man, you should have gotten that on camera. You'd have been the only guy in the whole industry who would have gone that
I did
route.
recommend to people, it was plus 500, I will say, for a KO.
That's beautiful.
But on top of that, the thing I said to Coach Visser was, what are people missing here? Because I've had the luxury of covering a lot of your fights since they're typically in Vegas at big events.
Yes.
And we've spoken many times. And when I see you perform, I'm seeing you getting better every time. I'm seeing the kind of power you have. I'm seeing how good you are on the ground. And when I saw that everybody was taking Whittaker and that people weren't giving you a shot, it really confused me, honestly, from a place where I'm seeing these improvements in your game. I'm seeing what you bring to the table. And also, having had that surgery before the fight with Robert that would help your cardio, I just wasn't sure what people weren't seeing that maybe I was seeing or something that I was missing. Do you think that people believe in you now? Do you think that was what it took? Or do you think people are still underestimating you? Because I believe you're a betting underdog going into this fight against Strickland.
Yeah, I think that definitely opened up a couple of eyes. Definitely, I got called out a lot more before the Whittaker fight, I can tell you that. Everybody wanted to fight me. Whittaker never got called out, ever. Nobody said, I want to fight Robert Whittaker. Up after that fight, now he gets called out by a lot of people. That's the fight game. You're only as good as your last performance. And I always said it. I knew I had to grow into the UFC. I said it as well. My first fight was in 2020 of October. Then it was COVID. I couldn't fight for another 10 months because of COVID. Then, because Fight Island, that was the end of Fight Island. Then I fought again in July of 2021. So that's 10 months. That's around 10 months. And then for a whole year, South Africa wasn't, as a South African, I wasn't allowed to travel. I couldn't get a visa to come to the United States to fight. So I was off for a whole year after my second fight. So that is, what is that? That is a 20 to 22 month layoff in 2 fights. That's almost 2 years, 2 fights. And I mean, that was purely because of what happened during COVID. Then I had the fight a year after with Brad Tavares. I mean, it was 3 months after that I had the fight with Darren Till. 3 months after that I had Derek Brunson. 3 months after that it was Robert Whittaker. So then I started getting the activity that I wanted. And that long layoff, finding your feet in the octagon. I mean, I was a newbie in UFC terms. I've had a lot of fights, but finding my feet in the UFC, I had a first round fight and a early second round knockout. So I didn't get that time yet in the octagon. So then I started to build back up, getting that ring time. And I always knew I had that performance in me. I always knew, because if you go watching my fights outside of the UFC, I had those performances. A lot better than I did initially in the UFC, because I felt comfortable, I found my feet, and I was active like I want to be. And now, I'm back there. I'm back there to, and we saw that in the Whittaker fight. It was a completely different fighter. That's the fighter. That's me. And if you thought that fight was impressive, watch the fight next weekend.
Well, people are curious about your cardio. But I think one thing people, for whatever reason, have never noticed that I picked up on is that Pretoria is like 1,300 feet above sea level. It's very similar to Denver or Utah. I don't know if you don't want this to be exposed because nobody's talked about this, but I feel like if people are doubting your cardio, they should understand that the conditions in which you're training in are similar to that of like a Denver, where you're seeing guys with crazy cardio that can go 5 rounds no problem. So talk to me about, A, what it's like to train in Pretoria in terms of training above sea level, and then also what the surgery did for you that allows you to breathe better, and how that is all going to kind of culminate in, I think, one day seeing an all-around 5-round performance for you if people are able to withstand the power that you bring to the cage.
Yeah, of course. I think, going and saying, listen, of course, the altitude's amazing. That's one thing I always tell people. You don't realize what it does to you. I've seen fighters coming to Pretoria, Joburg, Johannesburg, where I used to fight before, the local promotion. Guys come and fight there and they struggle. It's like you see when you go see the Salt Lake City fight cards. You see guys 1 round and they are already, they're out of it. But so obviously that's a big advantage. But then my nose surgery helped a lot with, in general, recovering, being able to recover better, breathing habits. Everybody knows mouth breathing is bad, but when you're tired, you're going to breathe through your mouth. But breathing through your nose is the correct way of breathing. So that was, I had such a bad habit for years in doing that. So yeah, there was a lot of good coming from that surgery, but I don't blame the fact that I got so tired on that surgery alone, on my nose alone, not at all. I would maybe give 10% of the blame, 20% of the blame to that. Now that it definitely played a part, but no, it played a bigger part in how I looked physically, optically, how tired I looked, because I was breathing through very deep breaths and through my mouth. That played a big role. And obviously when that happens, you start hyperventilating, which does take a toll on your body. But we made some mistakes. Obviously, that's what I say. We are not perfect. Every fight we try and be better as a team. In my conditioning we were training super hard. And people always said, you have to do more cardio. And I go, there's not enough hours in the day. We are training so hard. Every fight we try to be better and better and harder. And then I get tired in the fight and we go harder. And it was, we missed some things. But as we grow, climb the ladder in terms of rankings, we climb the ladder in terms of knowledge and getting our team. We are open-minded when it comes to these things. We want to get better. We want to be the best in the world by a long shot. And you don't get that by being closed-minded. And we went out and we looked for the mistakes. We did all the tests that we possibly can. We got the right people, a lot smarter than me, the right people for the job, taking care, saying, listen, he's an exceptional athlete. He's a superhuman. But this one part of his conditioning has not been taken care of. This is the one small part that plays such a big role. It causes imbalance. And we started working on that, and we saw the results in the Whittaker fight. We saw in that fight how a guy, and I think that's where most people thought that Whittaker, because that was one question even I had in my mind. Listen, Whittaker doesn't get tired. He does 5 rounders and he makes it look easy. That's how he breaks guys. with his high pace, and he keeps it for 3 to 5 rounds. And then in that fight, I could see him slowing down. I could feel, and I was going at a high pace. And even in that first round, I wasn't going at 100% pace. I would say after he got a takedown, halfway through the first round, I got up from a takedown, and I could see he took a very big breath, and his eyes told me this guy is very, very strong. And his eyes told me, I really hope this guy gets tired. And that's when I started pushing the pace in the second round, pushing the pace. And I'm talking about I felt amazing. I didn't even feel this much tired. And that was, I mean, I would like to take all the credit. Of course, I did the work, I put in the work, but my team, my coaches, the people around me, they looked after me. We want the best. We want what's best, and I'm just happy that we didn't get stuck in, but at least we're winning. Didn't wait for something stupid, a stupid loss because of total fatigue to fix those things. And here we are today, better fighter than yesterday and a better fighter than the last time. And after this fight, you'll see an even better fighter for the next one.
And having answered that question regarding cardio and a guy that doesn't slow down like Robert Whittaker, you've got a similar opponent with Sean Strickland, another guy's got great cardio, who also can match you in volume. You guys are two of the best volume strikers in the middleweight division. Now, your power, I think, is a lot stronger than what we've seen from Sean. But having answered that question in the Whittaker fight, how does that help you going into this one?
Yeah, I mean, fighting that Whittaker fight, if you look at Whittaker's volume, it's very, because Whittaker has knockout blows. Whittaker, and if you look at his activity in terms of clinching and blitzing, he has a very explosive style of fighting, where Sean Strickland has a very almost Nate Diaz style of fighting. So it's awkward, and it's something you have to take into consideration when you're preparing for this man. And you have to take it into consideration while you're in the octagon. But once again, I have the right people around me. I love this sport. I've been watching Sean Strickland fight for many years. Long before I knew I would fight him. I actually thought that we would never cross paths, to be honest. I just knew he was in the top 10, but I have this gift that I always see people and I know I'm going to fight them eventually. And he was never on that. So, I mean, he defied odds, but everything you can do, I can do better. And I 100% believe and know that.
If you win the title, I'm sure you're going to want to fight in South Africa and defend the title there. Is there the infrastructure there in terms of an arena? I know there was an arena in Johannesburg that has since been turned into, I believe it's like a car showroom now. But there aren't really any arenas in South Africa. Are there indoor stadiums anywhere that you could fight? Because I know open air stadiums are something that the UFC don't typically like holding events in.
When I win the title, the first defense will be in South Africa. I'm not saying this because I know anything. I'm saying this because that's how it's going to happen. And we have stadiums, closed door stadium, 10,000 seaters, easily. I don't know if that's big enough, but I promise you, if this happens the way that I think it's going to happen, we are going to make a plan. We're going to make sure we get that UFC to South Africa.
We're very good at manifesting things, and like I mentioned before, again, you want to be the greatest of all time. You're only 29 years old. You're not even in your prime for somebody in this division. So map it out for me. You win on Saturday. What's next? Finish the story for me. How does Dricus Du Plessis become the greatest fighter of all time?
I would like to quote the great Apollo Creed for this one. After the fight, there is no tomorrow. For me, my whole life stops come 20 January. I don't think about what happens after that. I don't think about what happened before that. I think about one thing, and that's beating Sean Strickland and becoming the champion of the world. And I'm going to be champion of the world, or I will die trying. But there is no tomorrow, in the words of Apollo Creed.
So you don't have a roadmap in your mind of how
Not at all.
You're just going to keep doing it.
No, of course I have a roadmap, but just it's not even worth mentioning. It's not even worth spending any energy on, because nothing works without that. Nothing works without being victorious on Saturday night. Nothing works. That is the first order of business, and that is the only order of business. And then we shift our focus to the next one.
Future opponents, let's forget about you, opponents for you. Down the line, if you're looking at the middleweight division, who are some guys you believe will fight for the championship one day?
Well, geez, I have to say one guy that has always impressed me Roman Dolidze. I think he's a big middleweight. He's a very well-rounded middleweight. I know you had that loss against Trevor Giles, which I beat, but it was a very short notice fight. That was the fight I was supposed to fight, and I think he's a force to be reckoned with. I rate him as a fighter. I really do, because he has striking, he has the athletic ability. You know, obviously I don't know anything about his camp, and I've met him a couple of times. He's a nice guy. He seems very committed, but he's a guy that I see at the top of the pile eventually. And you know, he's one specific guy that I've kept an eye on. Even when he lost that fight to Trevor Giles, I remember watching that fight because I was supposed to fight that fight. I thought, this guy's good. He's really good. He lost that fight in decision, but he's good. He's a good fighter. Right now, I think he's somebody. And then, you know, of course, with the middleweight division, there's a lot of shifting happening with new guys coming in, all the guys leaving the division. I don't think. I think the Robert Whittaker versus Paulo Costa fight is something that's gonna. It's gonna be a big answer for a lot of questions. Paulo Costa loses this fight, he's done. He's done. If Robert Whittaker loses this fight, he won't be done in terms of physically being, like, he would still beat everybody else. But I think mentally that would almost stop his aspiration, because Whittaker is a guy I have tremendous respect for as an athlete and as a person. I think in his mind, if he's not going to be a champion, he's not going to do it. He wants to be the best, and if he can't be the best, he's going to call it a day. So I do think Whittaker wins that fight. Paulo Costa has been inactive for very, very long, and if that fight actually happens, yeah, I think Whittaker wins that fight, but that's going to answer a lot of questions, because there's a lot of guys knocking on the door saying, we want to fight. Of course, we have Brendan Allen fighting Marvin Vittori, and that's going to answer a lot of questions too. So there's a lot of new guys coming into the division and facing sort of the old dogs in the division, and that's going to answer a lot of questions. So if you ask me that question in 3 months, it's gonna look a whole lot different. I do believe that the top 5 of the middleweight division is gonna have a very big shuffle within the next 2 to 3 months.
Can I get your assessment on 2 more guys, Khamzat Chimaev and Bo Nickel?
Khamzat Chimaev, he is welterweight, and Bo Nickel, I mean, what is it? Khamzat is a welterweight. He is not a middleweight. I mean, who's he fought at middleweight? So, I mean, my opinion on him is he's a very big and strong welterweight, and he's a very average middleweight. That's what I can say, because he had a very average performance against a welterweight at middleweight. So, as a middleweight, I don't really have an opinion on him. He's a guy who beat somebody who's not even in the rankings. So, yeah, that's it. And then Bo Nickel, yeah, like I said, we'll see. He's winning fights. Good wrestler, I guess. He fought a guy that's this high on a day's notice, and he knocked him out. So that's cool. But yeah, I mean, I guess the UFC really wants Bo Nickel to be successful, and he's only been successful. So yeah, I mean, kudos to him. Like, he has an amazing resume, but this is a different sport. And yeah, obviously they're building him to get more experience in the sport, but it's going to be interesting to see. I don't know if this fight's going to answer a lot of questions, but as soon as he fights anybody, that's going to answer a lot of questions. But you know, he is an athletic guy. He has what it takes to be the best. In terms of, if you look at his wrestling, he has that competitiveness in him. He has that urge to be a champion in him. So with that attitude, you can do anything.
Dricus Du Plessis is in the main event against Sean Strickland. It's UFC 297. The UFC returns to Toronto this Saturday night. Really appreciate you doing this. The prelims are available to standard and premium subscribers of Sportsnet Plus, as well as Sportsnet 360. And the main card featuring the main event with Dricus Du Plessis and Sean Strickland is available at an additional cost on Sportsnet Plus. No subscription required. Dricus, thank you for doing this.
Thank you for having me.